NECN Election 2012. Brown versus Warren Senate debate.
7:04 in the morning show. The candidates for Senate in Massachusetts back in the campaign trail today after their third televised debate of the campaign from Springfield last night. Elizabeth Warren and Scott Brown squared off last night, tackling issues of jobs, health care, and the cost of education.
So picture this, kids are actually forced to go out and actually borrow money at a high interest rate, and then they pay it to schools like Harvard, and then Harvard actually goes and then gives a zero interest loan to its professors. That's one of the driving forces behind the high cost of education.
I went to a commuter college. I paid $50 a semester for tuition, and I'm proud to have made it where I've made it in my profession. But let's be clear, I paid $50 a semester because America was investing in public colleges and universities at the time. That's what we need to do again.
It was a spirited debate last night. Here to carry it forward a bit, two partisans from the campaign. Meet Mara Dolan. She's from the Democratic State Committee, co-chair of the Policy Committee there. And Jeff Simone is former congressional candidate and a spokesperson for the Massachusetts Young Republicans. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Key focus right now is undecided voters, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Jeff, let's start with you. Who is an undecided voter, briefly?
The undecided voter is quite simply that middle-class voter who's struggling out there. And from last night's debate, the debates before, you can clearly see that Professor Warren wants to raise their taxes, wants to raise taxes on oil companies. And as Scott Brown eloquently put it last night in debates before, they'll pass that on to the consumer. We're paying $4 a gallon at the pump right now, and people are struggling. So if they want more money out of their pocket in the hands of government, they'll vote for Professor Warren. If you want to keep more of your money, you want to save for college, you want to save for retirement, you'll vote for Scott Brown.
All right, I'll have you elaborate a little bit more on those independent voters in a second. Mara, who do you think are the undecided voters? Who are they targeting out there?
Those voters who are less informed, those who haven't been following the issues, those who don't understand that Elizabeth Warren is the candidate in the race who has absolutely made a solid commitment not to raise taxes on the middle class, unlike Scott Brown.
All right, Jeff, let me ask you this question. Scott Brown presents himself as a nonpartisan, as the kind of guy you want to reach to because he's going to be balanced. He's going to consider the issues before he makes his decision. So then why would he take the Grover Norquist pledge, which is an outright promise to never raise taxes under any circumstances?
Well, when you look at the numbers, which Scott Brown does because he actually reads the bill, you can clearly see that any raising of taxes isn't even going to come close to affecting our deficit. Maybe 10% at the maximum. And he knows that government is not a good steward of our money, period. So the default response of the Democratic Party, including Professor Warren, is to constantly raise taxes, and raise taxes.
So when we had the biggest financial crisis in the history of the country, and the government had to do something to bail out either GM or banks or whatever, that is an instance where, the government shouldn't have been involved, or I'm confused about this.
Well, there's debate on that. I won't speak for Scott Brown on that issue,
but that's why you're here. I mean,
okay.
Doesn't taking a Grover Norquist pledge put handcuffs on him?
It's a spending issue. We have over a $1 trillion deficit. $1 trillion in deficit that won't be affected in the least by raising taxes. We have to responsibly reform entitlements. And you saw Professor Warren last night say she's not even going to look at reforming Medicare and Social Security, and that is flat out reckless. These programs are going bankrupt. We have to responsibly look at them. We have to be grown-ups, and we can't demagogue the other party like Scott Brown does. He goes across the aisle. He is bipartisan. 54% he only votes with the Republican Party, and he has clearly demonstrated that he is the person that can get the job done.
And has made a promise that he would never raise taxes under any circumstances. Mara, over to you. Elizabeth Warren presents herself as a consumer crusader. She goes to fight for the little guy, and yet Scott Brown, I think, suggests, wait a second, you attack lobbyists, you say there's a bunch of high-priced lawyers that are fighting for corporations down in Washington, D.C. Isn't that what you are, and isn't that what Elizabeth Warren is?
No, she has represented corporate clients, but the substance of her work has been to fight for the middle class as a bankruptcy attorney and as the founder of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which has been instrumental in returning billions and billions of dollars to people who've been defrauded by credit card companies and mortgage companies.
And I don't think it rings true to the voter out there who sees case after case, and it's slowly coming out over the past few weeks. First you had Travelers Insurance, then you had LTV Steel, Now you have Dow Corning. I mean, there's a pattern here where she is not who she says she is.
And the
She's
pattern-
clearly representing big corporations over and over again and claiming to represent the little guy.
All right,
You know,
Mara,
she says
final
in her
word.
ad, she says the
I'll give you
system
the
is
final
rigged,
word. I'll
but
give you the
she's
final
rigging
word.
it for
And the
herself.
pattern is attacking Elizabeth Warren instead of talking about Scott Brown's record. That's how they want to get to uninformed, undecided voters, by not letting them know who Scott Brown really is.
Appreciate both your comments. It was spirited last night. It was spirited this morning. Jeff Simone and Mara Dolan, thanks for joining us on the morning show. Tonight, the vice presidential candidates will face off. We expect this to also be a spirited debate. Coverage begins tonight at 9, and you can watch it live on NECN, or if you prefer, on NECN.com.